And just like that, that was pretty damn cool. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Alaska Divided by Zero and Cold Fusion. We have your host, Daniella. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I am excellent. I've been looking forward to this for a few weeks now. So, what are we doing here tonight?
Well, tonight we have got three really great indie authors that write in the speculative fiction genre. I brought them all together because they all write really unique anti-heroes. They write really unique fiction in general, but they write really unique anti-heroes. And so I brought them together so we can talk about the anti-hero and the difference between what the hero is, the anti-hero, and what the villain is. Because it seems like here lately, like everywhere you look, everyone's got like anti-hero movies, like the gritty anti-hero. And even, like you look at Disney, all of a sudden Disney's turning all their villains into kind of anti-heroes. You've got movies like Maleficent or Cruella de Vil, where they're kind of giving their villain like an empathetic backstory.
Or for you other kids out there,
Deadpool, Suicide Squad, was it Birds of Prey? There's all these movies coming out. The Joker, that's probably one of the most successful ones, right? With Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
Where now you're kind of turning the villain into a relatable hero. And it's like, well, what does that really fall into? And so what does that become? Are they really a hero? Are they an anti-hero? Or are they still a villain?
Good point.
So I'm really excited to bring these folks together, and we're gonna talk about what makes for the definition of an anti-hero and in great writing, both in film, movies, television, and books. Since a lot of times, they might be taking a book and turning it into a movie.
Nice. And I'm just going to interrupt like I normally do because I'm Joe and that's what I do. Ladies and gentlemen, if this is your first time tuning in, please go to the Indie Escape YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, do all those things. Also, the Facebook page, if you like and subscribe, we'd greatly appreciate it. We also have TikTok, Twitter. What's the other one? Instagram.
Yep.
So just because, Daniella was going to do that, but I was just like, I saw the look on her face and I was just like...
Well, I got off on a rant on what we were going to be talking about tonight, but you should really subscribe because some of the other people in the Indiescape have some really cool stuff coming on, like Gabe on Tuesday nights. I mean, look who he's got lined up.
Bruce Valanche. Holy cow.
Like, oh my goodness. It's like so exciting. I can't believe that I've got to see this. We've got CJ on Mondays with Manic Mondays.
And he's got a new show.
And he's got a new show, Crowd the Fund. Of course, we've got Brandon on Fridays with Outlaws United, Indie Outlaws United. We've got David Madison on Sunday nights, which I'm really excited to see what he's got going on, especially with his indie movie that's coming out, the Full Moon Fever. Yeah, it looks really like kind of a darker werewolf movie. I've been loving the little clips he's been putting out with him and Scott Schiaffalo.
And who else do we have? We have Scott Meany, who's going to be on Saturday night. This Saturday night, CJ is actually going to be producing a show for Scott and Thomas. They're going to be interviewing or hanging out with Sean Smithson, who's done some woodwork for Scott's artwork, which is kind of
really
cool. Yeah. And I do have to give a shout out to Steve Gray. Steve does all of our graphics. Thank you very much, sir. It's greatly appreciated. And he's going to get back to doing shows on Wednesday nights.
Yeah. And we're doing that, the writing, where we're each taking a chapter and we're doing like a dark story that he's going to read. I think my chapter is coming up soon. I haven't seen the chapters that the others have put together yet, but I'm supposed to be getting that soon. And then I'm supposed to write a chapter. So I'm eagerly looking forward to it.
That's Ken. Hey, Ken.
Good evening, Ken.
All right. So are we doing Cold Fusion right now?
Yep, we're going to do Ray's video, and then you're going to bring me in each of my guests one at a time so I can introduce them, have them introduce themselves.
There's no chance Ray's going to just like peek in right before his video?
No, he's like feeling under the weather tonight.
All right, whatever. That's what whiskey's for. He told me that himself.
You know, he's drinking whiskey. I think he's trying to get me drunk because he poured me a glass of wine and he poured me whiskey. So I'm a little.
Well, there's no sense of getting you drunk. You can't take advantage of you if you're sick.
I don't know. Maybe he expects me to take advantage of him.
All right, here we go with Cold Fusion.
Fall in Alaska can last anywhere from a week to maybe 3 if we're lucky. Fall colors blow away in the wind to make way for white. We travel 404 miles from our winter home in Anchorage to our summer cabin in Chicken, Alaska. Let's go ahead and take a journey. 2 roads diverged in the yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Most everyone has heard the opening lines to Robert Frost's poem, The Road Less Traveled, but here at the Indie Escape, all of us are already on a divergent path from normal. So the question is, what additional takeaways can we learn from Frost's words that's different? In the second verse, Frost describes the paths, though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. Frost is actually indicating that both paths are relatively equal. Even though he may call one of the paths less traveled, it really isn't. However, they do lead to different destinations. That's a point we need to remember. In the third verse, he acquiesces, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. When we make decisions in life, we understand that one choice leads us to others. Over time, the choices we make add together. In film editing, something has to be attached to the timeline start. Everything else comes after. Unlike film editing, within our lives, we don't have an editing suite to cut out a segment and paste something new into the past. I shall be telling this with a sigh, some were ages and ages hence. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled by. When we look at our lives and choices in retrospect, we see that one of the most important things to do is simply choose a path and follow it. No matter which path we take, we will have successes and failures. It wasn't one decision that led me to be an artist in Chicken, Alaska. There were hundreds of inflection points where decisions were made along the way. So, when you come to 2 diverging roads, make a choice and just keep on walking.
That was awesome. He's getting better and better at those.
I know he's I married him for a reason. He's got some talent.
Ray, I really hope not.
No kidding.
You already went through that crap, so
I've been through it like 3 times now, so I'm good. So just no more.
All right. Well, introduce away. Who am I bringing up?
Let's give it a roll. Let's bring in Crystal first.
Crystal.
How's it going, Crystal?
It is going great. I'm on puppy watch, so I'm exhausted. So I'm able to make so much sense tonight.
Hey, welcome to the fray. So, Crystal, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you write.
All right. A little bit about who I am. I am a Canadian author originally from the loosey-goosey West Coast, where all the hippies live. Moved to the middle of nowhere, Alberta, which is like the Texas of Canada. So lots of oil, lots of rednecks, lots of fun. So I've had a few interesting life experiences to get me from hippieville to redneckville, and I've enjoyed all of them. And now, as far as what I do for writing, Canada, gotta love it. And I'm in the Kansas of Canada now. It's so flat. I'm not even home, guys. I'm even further into the middle of nowhere, but it's still a very large city somehow. So anyways, I digress. So I write dark speculative fiction. I have an absolute love for imperfect characters in both villains and heroes. And I love to experiment with my writing and have it take me down paths that not everybody might think of taking. So,
what is your latest book you've released?
The last book I released I actually brought it with me on this trip, just in case you asked, and it is Falling Light. And so Falling Light is the first book of another experimental one of mine, and it is both a dark contemporary fantasy as well as a romance, which is my first foray into romance of any kind. And it's been quite the challenge with the second book that's going to be released later this year, Rising Darkness, being a lot spicier than the first book. And I struggle with writing intimate scenes, so it's been a challenge, and I love doing that to myself. I really do.
Nice. Alrighty. Well, let's bring in Eric.
All right. Oh, and Ken's in Montreal, apparently. I knew that.
Bonjour, Ken.
Hello.
What an entrance.
Greetings from Albuquerque, New Mexico.
New Mexico.
Yeah, New Mexico. Not really new, not really Mexico, but we call it New Mexico. I'm Eric Lahti. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've predominantly done urban fantasy and just kind of far out stuff. I'm working on my first science fiction book right now. I was hoping to have a brand new release to say, hey, this just came out today, but it got pushed back till next week. So well, that will come out on the 7th, and that one should be a lot of fun. I don't know if anybody here did any beta reading. I don't think so.
Nope,
But
I was waiting to buy my copy and get it in my hands. I can't wait to read Better Than Dead.
I'm looking forward to getting that one out there. It's been a slog finding somebody crazy enough to publish it. Fortunately, I did find somebody who had enough of a tenuous grasp on reality to go ahead and take it on. My most recent one was Roadside Attractions. It's kind of like borderline horror and humor. That's a lot of fun about a woman that gets killed in the first 6 pages of the book, and then her spirit winds up stuck in a convenience store in the middle of nowhere, Arizona, and all kinds of craziness happens on that.
That sounds fun.
It is fun.
No, Eric's books are a lot of fun. Like I said, my favorite one I reviewed was Henchman. And like I said, it's my favorite tagline of any book I've read is all the wrong things for the right reasons. It's just like, yes. And actually, I don't know if Brandon's going to call in or not. Yeah, he gets to hear about it all the time. Too bad. I don't know if Brandon's going to call in or not. I gave him the link. If Eric's books were ever made into a movie, I'd love for Brandon to play Eric's main character, Steven, in Henchman. So
It's interesting that that was my first book, and I think I wrote that in 3 months, just like start to finish. I sat down one night and started writing, and about 3 months later I was done, and then spent another few months editing it. And probably should have spent another few months editing it. It's got a lot of problems, but still kind of a fun story.
it's just a fun story. I think that's what it is. It's just a lot of fun. I think in my review is Tentacles, Guns, and Sushi was my review. It's just like sums it up.
That's pretty much it right there.
Nice.
All righty. Well, let's bring in Willie.
All right, I'm going to bring in Willie, and I am going to pop out. If you guys need anything, please let me know.
All righty.
Peace out, gangsta.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Willie, how's it going?
My camera died on me. I'm on my phone now. That's how
no.
it's going.
Oh, no. But you're still here, so...
You guys are so small. I can barely see you.
I love that close-up of Willie's eye. Like,
Oh, my God. Where are you guys? Oh, there you are. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Okay. You probably want to know who I am. Right?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
I want to know who you are, what you write.
I read satire. Sometimes it's funny. And the reason I'm here is that none of my characters are not that likable, but they kind of grow on you. I have a couple books out. The first one is a political satire called The Road Ahead. Then I did a space suit spoof called Love Mars, Hated the Food. It's got great recipes in it. And we're almost in April, but in May, I have a new book out. Can you see it? Can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah. And it is called Deep into the Weeds, it sounds like it's about dope, and it is actually. It's about a dairy farmer who decides to his farm's not doing too well, so he decides to switch over to growing weed, and things kind of don't go so well. And that's it. Thanks for having me, and we'll see you next week.
No, you don't get out of it that easy.
Oh, is there more?
Oh, yeah. Well, so as I mentioned when we were all in the green room before the show, I picked the three of you because I've read some of your works, and I felt like you guys all each write great anti-heroes. And I actually kind of got the idea for this show after like on the Sat Splat on Twitter, and it was Bob Kratos or Bob Jones, Kratos, who had the Sat Splat where it was all about the anti-hero. And there were just so many great responses to the anti-hero, and it's become so popular in modern media, especially with movies and things like that. There's a sense that it's almost becoming like a trend, or maybe even too trendy. So I'm going to start us off. The definition of an anti-hero is a central character in a narrative or drama who lacks the admirable qualities of fortitude, courage, honesty, and decency that are usually possessed by traditional heroes. And so we'll start off, that's like the premise of what an anti-hero is, but it's not a villain. So like there's the villain, on the other hand, is somebody that is a setup against the protagonist or the hero and does things purposely to block the hero. So that is the difference between the hero and the villain. But and one of the interesting things when I was looking around, like doing a little more research into the anti-hero is, like all the different examples of what an anti-hero is. So let's just start with, we'll start with first. So Eric, who are some of your favorite anti-heroes in either fiction or film? Actually, one of both, if you can give one.
Going all the way back in fiction, one of my favorites has got to be the Shadow from, back in the 30s. And he was really the prototype for Batman when you get right down to it. He's just a weird, dangerous guy who at some point in the past had been a drug dealer, a drug lord in Tibet, and was just not always the nicest guy in the world, but he did do good things. And unfortunately, except for that Alec Baldwin movie, 20 some odd years ago, I think everybody's kind of forgotten about the Shadow. In the more modern times, the new Batman movie that came out was surprisingly good. I kind of expected to go into it hating it, but Batman is doing right, and he's pretty much a classic anti-hero. There's not really anything good about the guy, other than the fact that he seems to have a real just fetish for busting bad guys in the teeth.
Yeah, and it's interesting how much Batman has evolved from like the Batman of like the 60s that was really campy.
Right.
Campy and good. And then now it's gotten progressively darker from, like you think of, okay, there's Batman, like the Adam West and Burt Ward. And then you had Michael Keaton's Batman in the 90s. And then from there, it's just gotten progressively darker and darker and darker.
Yeah. I remember seeing, Keaton's Batman the first time out in, 89 or whenever they released that. And it was like, whoa, that's pretty dark. And then along comes Christopher Nolan, and he's like, oh, this is what dark looks like. And then the new one comes out, and it's, holy shit, it's like watching a Cure video.
I like that analogy. So what about you, Crystal?
What I really like, I grew up on science fiction, even though it's not the primary thing that I write. And things like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with Arthur Dent, who is not your typical hero in any way, shape, or form. He is that actually reminds me a little bit of Willie's work there with, Love Mars, Hated the Food. He is your accidental bumbling idiot of a hero, but somehow everything works out. Absolutely love that. Dirk Gently, because I really do love my Douglas Adams. And I did read all the Dirk Gently novels as well. And, you know, I love that. American Gods, once again, really good example of your anti-heroes. And of course, if we're going to go with movies, obviously, everybody loves Deadpool. I grew up on comic books as well, and I loved Deadpool long before movies were made about him.
Right on. So, what about you, Willie? What are some of your favorite anti-heroes in fiction and in movies or TV?
I love Walt Weiss White in Breaking Bad. He's and in fact he's the inspiration for my next book. Pretty much. So that's the kind of character it is, and he he basically started a whole genre of that character in for anti-heroes. So if you've seen the series Ozarks, they've repeated the same theme, but even made it even darker. So I mean that's some of mine. I like, and all my books have anti-heroes in it because I like characters that have lots of flaws in them because it gives you a lot to work with, and I think people relate to them a lot better. And that's the great thing about anti-heroes is that people see some of themselves in an anti-hero. I think more so than from a heroic type of character. That's what I think.
And I kind of wondered, like, well, when I saw your book coming out, I was like, I wonder how much of his character is more like Walter in Breaking Bad, and how much of it is, something else. But and your point there about, do we relate more to the anti-hero because we're all flawed? We look at the traditional values of the hero, and the fact that, they're doing everything out of the goodness of their heart and they're so wonderful, when really all of us have our flaws, and perhaps we're maybe a little more morally skewed. We're not perfect. So what do you guys think of that? I'll throw that out there to the group.
Well, I'd have to say I 100% agree. It's one of the things I've always loved about the anti-hero in everything I've read, from comics to novels to watching on movies and TVs, is that they're relatable. Like, no matter, we always see these perfect heroic characters, and it's like an unattainable thing. It's a great little fantasy, but we spend so much time seeing the ugliness in the world that sometimes we want to know that ugly can still be good. And I think that's one of the things that people love about the anti-hero, is that, yeah, they've got an ugly side, but in the end, what they're doing is seen as attainable for anyone. Like, they're doing something good despite everything that they have going against them.
It's certainly easier to relate to what essentially amounts to a bad guy than it is to somebody who's just absolutely perfect. It's one of the problems I've always had with Superman, is he's just like, let's go out and save the world today, and he's got pretty much zero flaws. Or King Arthur, if you want to go back that far. I mean, there's just, we're going to go out and we're going to make things right for everybody. And that's, I don't know, that doesn't really interest me, because that seems a little bit crazy. And it seems like every time somebody goes out these days and they want to save the world, they're doing it for all the wrong reasons.
Right. Well, and when you think about oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I say, you would want to save the world because you want power or wealth or is there anything else besides power and wealth? No, I don't think so.
No, that's all I ever want in life.
No, I have a question. So is Will Smith now an anti-hero?
Or is Chris Rock the anti-hero?
I don't know. Who's the anti-hero?
What? He's become an anti-hero, hasn't he?
I'd say maybe Will Smith in the situation. I don't know. I always find telling jokes that punch down on people is more of a bullying thing. So,
yeah, Yeah, that's a tough one. Like,
But-
you know, who, you know, like, yeah, because, you know, I can see, you know, is someone who's had issues with, you know, medications making me lose my hair. It's like, yeah, you know, I'm surprised that Jada didn't beat him to the punch. No pun intended. But
It was an open-handed slap. It barely counts. That would be the black lab that was pestering me for
I gotta get
attention.
up too. All right.
Okay, I think
All right, you know I'm going to have to jump in because Will Smith did play an anti-hero in
He did.
Hancock.
and I love that movie. That's a good movie.
Yeah.
well, he technically also played what in Suicide Squad. He played was it Deadshot? Isn't that?
Wait, oh yeah, was he in that?
Yeah, he
Very
he
briefly,
played
yeah.
Deadshot in Suicide
Oh.
Squad.
Ah.
In the original, yes.
And so
He didn't
yeah,
come back for that, though, did he? For Deadshot? There was somebody else who played him, no? Or did he even
not
come back?
not in the second, not in the remake they did of the yeah.
Wow, and I thought I was a comic book geek. You got me on that one. All right, never mind, Bob.
Right on. Well, one of the other things I wanted to bring up is like when you look at like character development overall, like so one of the things that they've said that makes Walter in Breaking Bad such a great anti-hero is he actually starts out good with good intentions, right? He just wants to pay for his cancer treatments. He's a good guy at first, right? He's, you know, this poor teacher that wants to pay for cancer treatments, and then all of a sudden, as the seasons go on, he becomes evil. So
Yeah, it's a character arc that went the wrong way.
yeah, so is it easier to start out with someone who's good morally and have them progress through what's gone on into bad and then back to good? Or is it easier to start up with someone who's morally corrupt and make them good? What do you guys think?
Walt White's story was really classic fall of somebody who was a pretty good thing, and then he just got repeatedly beaten down until Albuquerque sunk its teeth into him, and he became pretty much like the rest of us that live here. So it was really interesting.
You're really selling us on Albuquerque there, Eric.
It's an interesting
stay
city.
up here.
Fun fact: we used to live right down the street from Walter White's house, and so when we were driving home, we would see them filming out there, and the people that own the house refused to sell it. So if you happened to be walking by or drive by, they would be sitting out there in their lawn chairs, just like, "Don't you dare come throw a pizza at my house." And it's like years later, but yeah, they're still on the tour.
Oh, right on. Huh. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh.
So yeah, I thought like his character development as it went through that motion, you're going from good to bad. It's just like really great anti-hero and you could almost argue that by the end, he's a villain.
He's very much the villain of the story.
Yeah, he's no longer a hero anymore.
No.
He is, and it's a great example of a negative character arc. I love seeing things like that because you don't see enough of them in any type of media, and they are starting to become a bit more common. But you're seeing more of the anti-villain, where they're showing the redeemable side of villains and where they come from, more so than an actual negative character arc.
One of the interesting things that came out of Breaking Bad was Jesse's arc went the exact opposite direction.
Yes,
he started out as basically
great.
a low-grade thug, and by the end of El Camino, it was just like, I'm done with all of this. I just want to go home. And so, he wasn't necessarily redeemed, but he was definitely not the same person as when he started.
Yeah, he's more of a classic anti-villain,
Right?
where they start out as a villain, but as time goes by, you see them have more and more redeeming qualities, and they are no longer the class. They are still not the protagonist. They are still set up against the protagonist, but they start to redeem themselves, and you can relate to them as as the audience. You're like, hey, they're not such a bad guy. They deserve a second chance, or they deserve more than what they're getting. And now here's an interesting thing. Like in my research on the anti-hero, some feel that the anti-hero is always doomed to fail. Versus like the hero who, sure, they do all these heroic deeds and they may even die because of their deeds. But the hero typically in the anti-hero arc, because of the fact of their kind of twisted past or other things, they typically are doomed to fail. What do you guys think of that as writers?
Well, I don't think that's necessarily the case, because not every anti-hero goes through this arc where they go from good to bad. In fact, you can have anti-heroes who are morally, they're sort of in a very gray area, and they just progress. They're oblivious to how other people perceive them, and they kind of muddle through. They'll go through a number of crises and seem to wiggle out of them, and it's almost like they're made out of Teflon, and that's a very different kind of anti-hero that you it makes you cringe a little bit, and okay, so he makes you cringe a little bit, but you can't really hate him because he had other sort of redeeming factors or something like that, and that's a very different style.
With Willie, with your type of writing, where it's like almost what I like to call the accidental anti-hero, or the so like in Willie's book with his character Dixon that goes to Mars, that ends up on the Mars mission. I also like one of my other favorite ones, and I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. Ralph Hinckley in The Greatest American Hero, who gets the suit and is like, okay, so now he's a hero, and it's like, oh God, what do I do? Or even my other favorite, because we just rewatched this movie, Jack Burton in Big Trouble in Little China. He's kind of the like, hey, I'm here to just help my friend and get my money back, and he's off on this wild adventure with no real clue what he's doing. And so I think that's and I don't know, because you use a lot of satire in your stories, Willie. And so
yeah,
it's just like, I think that kind of arc where they start out as like their intentions are like, hey, I'm not a hero, I'm just here. In this case, your character Dixon is trying to find his purpose in life. I just made it on this mission to Mars and I'm just kind of cruising, and he ends up in a wild situation. So I think that character arc is more suited to, like, you go from mediocre to good. What do you think? Sorry.
I was just going to say, like, another example, at least in literature, a book that I read a while back is Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. And you've got a very weird, and it's a sort of a tragic comedy, and you have this sort of misfit main character that kind of has some redeeming values, but it's also extremely annoying.
So that it makes the character not likable, but even they're redeeming, but you're just kind of like, gosh, I wish this guy would just knock it off.
It's kind of like there's elements of sort of Salinger's book, Catcher in the Rye. I mean, there's another one, right? He's not a perfect kid, and yet you still root for him, right?
Right.
And I think this book, Confederacy of Dunces, is similar in that respect, and a Pulitzer Prize winner as well.
So, like, Eric, in your movie, you're so like when I'm looking at the different types of anti-heroes, so we have there's like the reject anti-hero that's been rejected by society, the moralistic, who their morals have been derailed by unfair societal rules. There's the corrupt, unscrupulous, and they said that's one almost kind of like Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean. The pragmatic, then there's the accidental, the hero in name only. I feel like a lot of yours are, you tend to write moralistic, which are they've been derailed by society's unfair rules. What seems to draw you to that type?
That's a good question. I never really thought about it that way. I always kind of looked at it as people that just got dropped into this area, and they moved through. If you go back to henchmen, I wouldn't argue that there's probably no real good guys in that book anywhere. Like, none of the characters have much in the way of redeeming qualities, other than the fact that they're kind of fun to hang out with. But the whole moralistic side. I think you can be immoral or even amoral and still do good things. And that is it's a fun thing to explore, because, like I was saying, the traditional hero is like, I'm all good all the time. And, a lot of my characters wind up not really being the best of people, but they still do something good at the end of it.
Right.
Roadside Attractions was just full of people that were arguably pretty vile at some level or another. With the exception of the two ghost hunters who were actually fairly good people. Everybody else was just a rogues gallery of craziness.
Okay, so Ray is saying, oblivious to how others perceive them is a great snapshot for artists. If we want to create unique art, don't we need to ignore society's ideas? So, okay, there's a great thought out there. So, what do you guys think of that one?
That's a good idea right there. I mean, it's like that old adage about, why would I want to paint a vase of flowers? If I want to look at a flower, I'm just going to go look at a flower. I don't need a painting of it. So let's paint something that we can't see normally.
Yeah, I mean, if you spend all your time listening to what society said you should and shouldn't write about, I would probably not write half the things I write. Ignoring that and just going with the flow of what you need to put out there is far more important as an artist.
It's almost like punk rock writing.
Yeah. It's an act of rebellion.
Well, and I think that's also a lot of what drives us to be more like indie authors and, indie presses, self-publishing, is that the gatekeepers of you have to write to market are not there as much. Like I've had people, like right now, I've got a couple things I've been querying, and I constantly hear, well, that's too dark, or that is not, we don't know what the market is for that, or ooh, that doesn't fit my list. And it's just like, well, okay, that's great and all, but my favorite one was, you shocked our editor. I was like, that was awesome. I was like, yes.
I would count that under good feedback.
Yeah,
it was good, but it was also just kind of funny. I think my favorite one is like when certain agents and editors say they want horror, but they don't want gore. And I'm like, then I think what you actually want is like a thriller. You want thriller or suspense. But that could be a whole nother subject for a whole nother discussion. I feel like I'm getting off the anti-hero topic. We could have a whole thing like on just being an indie author, self-publishing. And but we're getting off the anti-hero topic. But Crystal, so having read, like, in particular, The Road to Redemption, where your character he sold his soul to Satan, and now he has to, after years of living with this, he's got to go into hell to rescue someone. And so it sounds like, and I can't remember, like, so your character was kind of I felt like a little bit of both the reject, kind of rejected by society, and maybe moralistic. But what do you think? What kind of anti-heroes do you find yourself drawn towards writing?
Much like Eric, I actually don't put a lot of thought into it. I have this intense love of characters that live in those gray areas. Both in my published and unpublished work, it's there. Like Road to Redemption, the hints at the backstory are there. There are parts of it there, but he's self-rejected from society because of the curse that follows him everywhere he goes. But he's always been somebody who wants to do the right thing. So it is very moralistic in that way, that he's still constantly trying to do the right thing, which is continuing to move on so that the curse of the disaster and destruction that follow him wherever he goes doesn't affect anyone too strongly. So if the longer he stays in the place, the more damage he causes by staying there. So it's very much, he would be more of a hero if it weren't for the circumstances of his situation, which would be more moralistic. But I also love playing with characters that, well, sorry, brain is going because I'm listening to a dog whining in the distance right now. When you follow the series, each of the anti-heroes along there all have a very different backstory and where they started. But essentially, I do have the belief that most of these characters at some point would have been considered more along the lines of good people at one point. You have the next in the series, which is Depths of Darkness, where he's a retired detective. Life has gone to absolute shit. And that has affected him so deeply that he has gone down one hell of a rabbit hole. I've been told Depths of Darkness is a very appropriate name for that novel, just because of how dark it does get on the storyline as well as the character's personal journey. So I just love seeing how the decisions that people make in my stories affect them continually as the story and the plot unfolds from wherever I started. Even my villains, and I know we haven't started really talking about villains yet, I always try and keep in mind where they started, where they came from, and what they're actually trying to do. So, like the Saints and Sinners that Road to Redemption and Depths of Darkness are a part of in that series. Even when it's all based on Christian mythology, so even when I'm pulling in the demons, I'm thinking about their backstory, where these creatures come from. And there are characters that pop up there that you're like, it's a demon. Why is he sitting there, reading a Chuck Tingle novel? He's reading Tingle. Why not? Or why is he deciding to help this? Oh, he wants out of hell. He doesn't really like it down here anymore. So, even these characters that should be these traditionally evil, horrible characters, they're individualized and they have their own needs and wants. And I try and incorporate that into each of the characters, even the minor ones. So I don't know. Does that even half answer the question?
Yeah. Since we haven't even started touching on villains yet, but yeah, let's segue into villains, because like I said, the definition of the villain is the person who's against the protagonist and puts roadblocks to the protagonist. That is the definition of a villain. And so the anti-hero is not the villain. The villain is its own entity, just the person that is opposed to the protagonist. So what are some of your favorite villains in literature and film? So I'll start with you, Eric, this time.
Oh man, I didn't even study for this one. Favorite villain. It's going to look like I'm turning away, but I'm actually scanning my bookshelf to see if I can get something that will clue me in here.
Cheater! I don't even have my bookshelf with me.
Take your time.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
So I'll start us off. Since I threw this softball out there or fastball out there, one of my favorite villains, which some people would say is an anti-villain, is Inspector Javert from Les Miserables.
That's a good one.
Because he's just such a twist. In some ways, he's kind of twisted, but you can see that he's just so bound by the rules that he's just after Jean Valjean because the rules say I have to be after him. I have to uphold the law, even though he knows Jean Valjean's not a bad guy. I have to bring him to justice because he broke the law. And so he's just so rigid and bound by the law. He thinks he's trying to do the right thing. And so you can see how twisted he is. And so
Oh.
he's a villain, but he's also kind of an anti-villain in a sense. So he's one of my favorite well-written villains / anti-villains in literature.
I know it's not my turn, but that just brought up one of my favorite books, which is The Genesis Code by John Case. And I can't remember the villain's name, but he's very similar. He's doing what he thinks and honestly believes is the right thing, which does lead to murdering quite a few people and children. But he believes it's honestly the right and truly good thing to be doing in the situation. And I don't know if somebody who isn't sitting here on a cell phone without a computer around them at all could Google it. I can't remember what the particular character's name was, but he was with a very specific sect of the Catholic Church, because for some reason I really do like a lot of religion based in my stories, and the Genesis Code is absolutely fascinating for those who haven't read it or any of John Case's work. But
I read that book, but it was a long time ago, and I cannot remember the character's name.
But you know who I'm talking about, that one priest guy. Yeah. He was fascinating. But he honestly believed that what he was doing, these murders, were the best thing to be doing.
Okay, so I'm looking. So I have not read this book, so I'm very intrigued.
Well, it really placed me because, I mean, it deals a lot with history and genetics and religion, and it's a wonderful thriller, I would say.
So let's see. World Class Genesis, Ignacio Bezzi. So I'm reading this long. Silvio Della Torre.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
he was brilliant. Oh. So yeah, now right as soon as you said the name, I know exactly what the character description was, with the black curly hair, the dimples, the bright blue eyes. Just absolutely charismatic, but so dark at the same time. And it's a villain you want to love because he is so horrible. Maybe that makes me twisted.
No, I love horrible villains. In fact, one of my favorite villains from Game of Thrones is actually Cersei Lannister. I love Cersei Lannister in the TV show because she's just such an evil bitch.
I will call myself out. I have neither watched nor read any of those.
That's okay. That's okay. I just loved her character. And in fact, I'm a big fan of Lena Headey, who plays her. It's just like, you know what? She is an evil bitch. And I love it when they have a woman playing an evil bitch that just makes no bones about it. It's just like, all right, she's scary. Don't get me wrong. And she makes you go, oh my goodness. Like, she's just going to kill people. And all right, here we go. But you know what? She's just totally unapologetic about it. And it's like, dang, you go, girl. Well,
Hannibal Lecter is another kind of fun villain, although he's pretty easy to hate. There's not a whole lot about Hannibal that's nice.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then, you go back to, what is it? Silence of the Lambs. And, the character there, it's just like, but I think that's also when sometimes it's the actor playing them that also brings it to life. Anthony Hopkins as that character, you just brings shivers to you.
Oh yeah, I have fond memories of watching that movie as a teenager. That's a long story for another day. That really, if my parents watch this, should never know about. So,
so one of my favorite anti-heroes is from the movie The Fugitive, and that's U.S. Marshal Sam Gerard, because he's doing his job, but you dislike him anyways, because after all, Harrison Ford is an innocent man, right? So
Right.
it really, really worked well in that film, and I think that's part of the why it did so well as well. And That's your classic sort of anti-villain.
Yeah.
I have a question.
And the one-armed man, of course.
So my question is, where would Darth Vader lie in all this?
Classic villain.
He's
just a
a
villain, yeah.
classic villain, but by the end, he is an anti-villain.
And at the beginning, he wasn't, if you watch the prequels.
Yep.
Right.
I try not to even think or acknowledge the prequels. Thank you very much.
Fair enough, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would say actually even technically, because there's all the foreshadowing that he's going to be. He's almost like, he starts out good, he has the full character arc to become evil, and then he goes back to being good, but he's still almost like, I would argue, an anti-villain. That's a great question, Joe. What do you guys think?
I would say
it varies from film to film, though, right?
Fair.
Depends on the film.
I've always been a strong believer in that everyone's a hero of their own story. Nobody thinks themselves the villain. And no matter how horrible a character is, if you dig deep enough into their story, there are ups and downs, there are things that are going to make them relatable, because the full 100% evil or 100% good isn't a very realistic thought or expectation all the time, which is probably why people don't really find themselves attracted to either side. They like the villains with redeemable qualities. They like the heroes with, those darker aspects, because you head to the extremes and it just becomes a caricature. It's so unrealistic, unrelatable, and unentertaining unless it's done in satire.
Yeah, I'm with Crystal on this one. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, "Man, I'm just going to be a dick to everybody I meet today."
Okay, wait, I do that.
My mustache, I'm gonna put puppies on the way to work. I'm just going to be vile.
Okay, no. I wake up some days and go, I am here to cause hell, and this is what I'm going to do today.
Yeah, but you don't do it every day. And that's where, the mustache twirling villain tying women to railroad tracks and wearing black hats.
I'm going to try it. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to try it. Every morning I'm going to wake up and just be pure evil.
And CJ says Darth Vader has gone full circle. It just depends on which part of his story you're watching. In the beginning is good, then bad, middle, and anti-hero by the end. So, and then, also we got to look at kind of like now I mentioned at one part in the show, now we see the trend in, in movies, Hollywood, where we're seeing true villain villain backstories where the villain is the protagonist, like the Joker, which is probably one of the, with Joaquin Phoenix, where you're seeing his side of the story and how he came to be what he is, portraying society as the bad guy that made him come to be. And so you're feeling a lot more empathy for the villain.
Okay, but fair point. Society often is the bad guy.
Yeah, well, which makes him an anti-hero. Well, and which makes him an anti-hero, a moralistic or a reject anti-hero, that society has rejected him and twisted his morals. So, but it's very interesting that we're seeing this trend now of, we're going to get the villain is now the protagonist, and it kind of makes me wonder where we'll go with this. How long will it be a trend before it's overdone? Will people?
I'm going to say I don't think it can actually be overdone. Well, I mean, sorry, it can be overdone by Hollywood because they like to do the one narrow version of things. But the only difference between your villain and your hero, when you take away the extremes, are the choices they make with what's happened to them. Whether they choose to try and do the right thing, or they say, screw it all, I hate it, everyone has to suffer the way I do. It comes down with the choices to what they have, and that's the only line that really separates your anti-hero from your anti-villain, is the choice they make. on what to do with what's happened to them. And your character arcs, there are so many different kinds. Everybody thinks of character arcs as just your, hey, here's your arc, here's an improvement. But there's negative arcs, there's flat arcs, and of course, you know, you have the full circles and everything. So you can do a lot with these villain characters. And if it's handled properly, which I don't expect Hollywood ever to do, it can be done brilliantly over and over again using different ways of telling these stories.
And so CJ just commented the difference between hero and villain is the choices they make, like Crystal just said. So he's, you know, CJ's like, right on.
I've got another example, though. What about The Boys? The series, The Boys? Nobody?
Nope.
Anybody?
Oh yeah, I love it. It's a gut punch.
So you have good guys and bad guys, but the good guys and bad guys are both good and bad.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
right.
It's
Yeah,
just the
boys do a
decisions
lot
they
of bad
make.
things.
Well, but it's also like depending on who is telling the story, right? Who is set up to tell the story as the protagonist versus who is set up to tell the stories, who is set up to be the antagonist, right? You know, we have there's the saying, history is told by the victors.
Yeah.
So, you know, it all depends on who is telling the story.
You know, the first story that I wrote, the first book that I wrote, it's an anti-hero as well, and he's so good at being an anti-hero that I really don't have an antagonist in the book, because he's both the protagonist and the antagonist. It just works that way.
Well, when you get into it, an antagonist doesn't have to be a person, right? Antagonist could be, you know, like when you think of themes, it's human versus human, you know, self, human versus society, human versus nature, human versus human. And I think a lot of times in storytelling, they get so focused on human versus human that they forget you can be your own antagonist. And
he trips himself up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's the character. If he had every time he has a choice of door A or door B, he's going to always take the wrong one. Always. And as such, he is the hero and the villain at the same time.
But those are some of the most fun stories, because it's like when you're reading through them, it's like as you're reading, it's like, will he ever learn? You know, and kind of like Crystal was saying, that's almost like a flat arc. When the character never learns, they just keep like, oh, hey, well, they learned from their last mistake, but now they're presented with a different choice, and they still pick the wrong one because it was a different choice this time.
Yeah, and then that character, it's a flat arc, definitely. He never learns.
Yeah. And then that comes back to Crystal's comment. Everyone's a hero in their own story.
I'm getting quoted today. This makes me feel so damn good.
Well, we are coming to the end of our hour, and I know it's getting late for some of you. But so what I do want to do, let's see, was there anything else so we made it through the villain, we made it through a little bit of the anti-villain. Is there anything else on these topics that you guys wanted to touch on before we start to wrap things up?
I think I've said all the good things I can say.
All right. Well, how about this?
I'm still thinking of something good to say at all. So
you said a lot of great things tonight, Willie.
No, they weren't great. It was kind of very much up and down.
You're brilliant, Willie. Don't let yourself tell you otherwise.
You are the hero in your own story, man.
I am also delusional, so that has a lot to do with it.
Well, how about this?
I am a hero, right?
So actually, I want to start with Willie this time. So Willie, one of the things I forgot to have you tell the audience, you are also working on a memoir right now that looks pretty cool. And I can't wait to read it. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that?
It's my family history. My parents were Holocaust survivors, and I guess recently, maybe because I was in lockdown so long, I decided that it was really time to tell their story. It's not like any of my other books. It is actually
Right.
99% done. I'm just going through some edits, and I've done it for my family, but it is. I have had a couple people read it, and it actually is quite riveting. A little difficult to read at spots, but it's a great story about how people survive horrible trauma and how resilient human nature is.
Well, I'm really looking forward to reading it. That's why I wanted to bring it up because I know you've said that in the process of going through doing your research, you've been posting a lot of the research you've done, and I'm just it's just been mind-boggling what you've been able to find out about your family. So I mean, one, thank you for posting about all those pictures and things. My sister-in-law on the East Coast, her parents were her grandparents were Holocaust survivors, and then her parents are getting up there in years, and so she's really eager to read it as well. She's been kind of following you online, so I'm really excited to read this. We're both like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so cool.
Did you hear that, Willie? You have stalkers.
I appreciate everybody's feedback because I actually thought nobody but my family would want to read this book.
Oh no, we've been stalking you online. It's been awesome.
And I even yesterday, I in fact uncovered some information I didn't have previously, and today I had to start rewriting a chapter of the book. So
was that the one about the older brother?
That was that.
Was that the post about the older brother?
Yeah, my mother had a family. There was a family portrait done of my mother's family. They were from Romania, and I've seen it since I was a little child. And it was her parents and all her siblings. She had 3 sisters and 3 brothers. There were 7 of them. Well, I uncovered that there was actually an older brother who actually wasn't living with them at the time because he was already married, and she never mentioned it. And the odd thing is, both my parents, the family members who died in the Holocaust, they never spoke of. I didn't even know their names, and so uncovering a lot of this stuff has been a very difficult and kind of sometimes uncomfortable feeling.
Mm-hmm. Wow. But
that could be another that could be another topic.
Well, yeah, actually, we could do probably a whole show on all the research you've done. It's just been like you've been posting. It's been like, wow, I can't believe he's been able to find out all this information. It says the Indiescape is filled with Willie stalkers.
My family is stunned. I call up my sister and she goes, "What is it now?" I think a few times I had her in tears.
Oh,
Clementine.
So it's been quite a ride, and I'm actually looking forward to getting it out there. And anyways, that's basically what's taken up most of my life for the last year.
Well, I'm really looking forward to reading it. And so tell the Indiescape group where they can find you on social media.
Okay. Well, I am on Twitter, relatively active. It's not hard to find me because it's at Willie Handler, and on Instagram and Facebook. So if you search for Willie Handler, there's not a lot of them. You will find me on those platforms. And I also have a website and blog. And what do you know? It's also williehandler.com.
And I noticed on your website, you said that Snopes says you're fake.
What's that? Oh, yes,
Snopes says you're fake.
that's correct. That's the name. That's the name of my website. Snope says I'm a fake.
Why does Snopes say you're a fake?
Because you can't believe anything I say.
Because Toronto
Okay.
isn't a real place.
I'm not even real.
You're not real.
No,
Then who have
no.
we been talking to
I've
tonight?
actually I passed away 6 years ago, and a bot has been operating all of my social media ever since.
Oh, okay.
And you're actually speaking to a droid right now.
Oh, okay. Okay, that clears everything up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Eric, tell us tell us again once more about
Are you real, Eric? Are you really there?
For now,
So Willie was bought by Disney how many years ago?
Years ago.
Let's
Years
start
ago.
putting a TM after his name.
So Eric, once more, tell us again about your latest project. You have your book releasing in just about a week.
Yep, Better Than Dead is supposed to be out in about a week, provided it doesn't get pushed back any further. It's about vampires and gunslingers and necromancy and magical drugs, and it's a blast. It's got some fairly dark scenes in it, but it's overall a lot of fun. So take henchmen and turn it up to 11, and that's about where you'll wind up with Better Than Dead.
Well, I'm really looking forward to reading that one. Like I said, hopefully my copies. I got a couple of copies, so that way I can give one away on my next show. So hopefully that's going to be a one of my freebie giveaways.
Cool.
So I'm pretty excited about getting those. Yeah, that just looks like it's going to be a fun read. When I'm out in my cabin in Chicken and looking at the tailed ones and stuff, But tell the audience where they can find you.
I'm fairly active on Twitter. You can find me at Eric Lahti at Eric Lahti 1. Interesting side effect. I also have at Eric Lahti, but I forgot the password to it, so I just created a new one, and that's my primary location. I'm on Facebook. Search for my author account. I'm on Instagram, but I don't do a whole heck of a lot with it. So primarily, your best bet is finding me on Twitter. I've got a website that I actually do need to update. That's just ericlahti.com. And I've got a blog that I keep forgetting to do updates on, and that's ericlahti.wordpress.com or org. I forget which.
Awesome. All right, thanks. And one other thing too, because the person that was supposed to be my surprise guest tonight actually couldn't make it. Hopefully he'll be here again. You also do martial arts, which features in a lot of your writing.
Yes, I've done Kenpo for a little over 20 years now. My son and I both tested for our 3rd degree black belts last summer. Wow. So that was a long time coming. And I'm still actively doing it. We've moved to the point in class now where it's like do a whole bunch of sit-ups and then punch each other in the stomach.
Right on. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I used to box in high school. I've never been a martial artist. I used to box and I used to fence, but no like karate. So that's pretty awesome.
Fencing looks like a lot of fun. Last time I used a sword, I wound up with like 9 stitches in my hand.
Fencing was a lot of fun. I used to fence competitively, and I did foil and épée.
Cool.
And I did saber in like one tournament, and because back then, now that's 25 years ago, there weren't a lot of women saberists. So trying to get enough women together for a tournament so you could have a women's competition was just like, there just weren't that many. So we finally had one competition where we could do it. And we're like, yay, we're going to fence saber. It's the one weapon you could slap. That's all we understood. It's like, woohoo, we can slap each other. And me and my friend just about got black carded from the tournament because we're like, woohoo, we can slap.
Wow.
And so, yeah, but it was fun. It was a good time. But cool. Yeah, épée was my primary weapon.
Nice.
All right. So, Crystal, where can we find you? And what, tell us about, either your latest book or maybe your work in progress. What do you got releasing soon? What's going on?
So what I've got releasing soon would be the second book in my Shadows of Fate, which is the dark contemporary fantasy / romance. That should be coming out. It was originally supposed to be slated for the end of April, but it is still in edit, so it got pushed back to, I think it's July that we've pushed it back to. And that's my next book coming out. I'm focusing on finishing that, and then a couple of work in progress that are Where the Dead Fern Grows. Where the Dead Fern Goes, and Oakwood Manor, I think is the other one I need to work on finishing, which are both Where the Dead Fern Goes is a very much death assassin with a touch of humor to it. So you get to start the novel with the character crawling her way out of a shallow grave, which is a lot of fun because it was a challenge on how many times I could kill a character in a novel, which tells you something about my writing if you ever wanted to see how many times I can kill a character in a novel. And when I say a character, I mean the main character, because I do tend to do that a lot. As for where you can find me, the easiest place to go is my website, and it'll have most of my socials there, which is crystalkirkham.com. Yes, there are 2 L's in the middle. Have fun typing it. So other than that, most social medias, you'll find my handle as @CanuckClick. And so yes, slang for Canadian click is CLICK. So CANUCKCLICK, just to play with those fingertips again and have you type a lot of repeating letters. And almost most social medias, you'll find me with that handle. So.
All right. Well, thanks a bunch, you guys, for being willing to participate in my madness here. This has been a fun talk about anti-heroes. And we have Joe, my producer, back again.
I'm just here for the closing.
He's just here to see if I'm going to mess up the closing. Thanks, everyone, for coming and watching tonight. If you enjoyed what we have plenty more at the Indie Escape. So please subscribe to our Facebook page, subscribe to YouTube, because we have some awesome stuff coming up, which we talked about at the beginning of the show, but we're happy to talk about it again. CJ's got Manic Mondays every Monday. We've got Gabe Simbalesta on Tuesdays, and he's got an awesome guest coming up.
Bruce Valanche.
Yep. We've got Brandon on Fridays with Indie Outlaws United. We've got David Madison on Sundays. We've got Scott Meany on Saturdays. And of course, we've got me on Thursdays with Alaska Divided by Zero, and Ray Shepard, my husband, with Cold Fusion. So, and we've got these 3 wonderful authors, and we told you where to find them on social media. So please check out their wonderful books. And
so what we're going to do now is we're going to drop them down. It's been an excellent episode, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. It was an absolute honor having you on. And I was just in the background going, damn, this is cool.
Well, thank you very much. It was great being on, and good to see you, Danielle.
Good to see you guys. Yeah.
All right. Good night, Willie. Good night, Eric. Good night, Crystal.
Good night.
You got to be concerned with Crystal and all those puppies coming. So, I mean, it's going to be happening at any time.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I want to see the puppies. Like the last batch of puppies, they were just so cute. These little floofs, little floofy poodles.
Well, you had one more thing you wanted to touch on for next episode, I believe.
Yes, my next episode, we are going to be interviewing the owners pilots of Rust's Aviation. So for people who are interested, I don't know if you're writing about Alaska, you're writing about being a pilot in Alaska, or maybe you just Alaska is like your dream vacation. You might want to check out the next episode. This is going to be fun.
You want me to play that little thing?
Yeah, play that little thing.
Absolutely beautiful and amazing.
Oh yeah, and these guys, they do it all. They have a permit to land in Denali National Park on the Root Glacier of Denali. So they fly to Denali, they fly to Brooks Camp. You know, they're the people that can take you to go see the bears. They actually support several reality shows in Alaska. So they're actually flying the film crews and stuff to support different things that are going on in Alaska. They fly hunters and biologists out into the Alaska bush. So they do it all, and they've been doing it since 1963 when their owner got back from World War II, and he lived here. He flew in Alaska for quite a few years and said, hey, you know, I could fly people. I could start my own business and fly people out into the Alaska bush. And so they're going to come online. They're going to tell us all about that. So
Wow.
People who are writing maybe screenplays about Alaska, people want to know what it's really like to be a pilot. You know, because sometimes you see what they do in films and it's like, that's not what it's really like.
Not the guys from 30 Days of Night.
No. That movie, I tell you.
You know, I was quite envious of that bear, though, in that video. I mean, you could just stand there and fresh sushi just jumps in your mouth. That's
Fresh sushi just jumps right up on in there, just chomp.
Bastards. All right. What do you have in closing?
What do I have in closing? Well, gosh, you know, thanks everyone for watching. And yeah, once again, it's been great having everyone watching tonight. Please subscribe to the Indie Escape YouTube channel and our Facebook page. We have some awesome material coming up here in Alaska. Ray and I are still working on our nonprofit, and I've got some books coming out soon.
Woohoo!
So yeah, we're moving onward and upward with what we've got here. Ray's got a sculpture that we're going to be erecting out in Chicken. So if you want to see video of that going up, you better subscribe to our YouTube channel. Or if you just want to see Ray like throw me in the 40-mile river this summer, you better see that, you better be subscribed or you're going to miss it.
Yes. Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
Or also, my awesome pictures of me as Queen of the North working up in, up north of the wall. You guys see it all the time, right?
Yeah, I can't deal. It's just, okay, so you're like a rocket scientist that's out there all the time, and
I'm an electrical engineer.
same thing. That's what I said.
Yeah, so I work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So so right now is my 2 off. I go back up in a week, and yeah. So, and actually it should start getting warmer up there soon. We might actually get above zero consistently.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward
if
to
she
this.
wasn't so freaking lazy, she'd do more than one of these shows a month. But hey, who am I to say?
Yeah,
But
if only I had the bandwidth up there to to support a show. I could do a show. It's terrible because I'll call, like, I'll be watching like Brandon's show or CJ's show up there, and it's just like I hear one in every like 3 words because the person in the room next door is watching porn. I'm just like,
it's
can you shut it off for 5 minutes?
Wait a minute. When did CJ get Jenna Jameson on his show?
Oh no. I'm talking about how like the people up there, like they're watching stuff and it eats all the bandwidth. So we have a limited amount of
I
bandwidth.
was playing with that. That's Jenna Jameson is never mind.
Never mind.
I think I just dropped my cock again.
Oh wait, here, I got one for you. Hold on. I got the cock right here.
On that note, everybody, please join us next time for Daniella and Ray's shows coming up. Do we have a date?
I think it's April 28th is going to be my next off time. So yeah, that sounds right. April 28th is the Thursday I'm off. And I do need to talk to you. Like maybe I could it was one of those things, had trouble getting guests and then they all replied at once. And so I may have to get with you. Maybe I could fill in for somebody else's show in April, so I can maybe do 2 in 1 week or something. So we can maybe work something out. Maybe I could beg someone, like if they don't have a show lined up that week or something.
Absolutely, consider it done.
So yeah, thanks again for watching, everyone.
I'm just going to let her have awkward silence and see what
Oh,
happens.
you're gonna let me have actually, if you're gonna do that, maybe I should show what T-shirt I'm wearing tonight.
Well,
I'm wearing my Beast Comes at Midnight for our friends and American Showtown Pictures.
oh, in Tampa Bay,
Designed by Steve
Florida.
Gray.
Yes.
I didn't get a chance to plug it earlier, but yeah, the design is by from our friend Steve Gray. I need to get another one just because this one's getting a little old. But yeah, I need to buy another one.
And
because
Big Ed and his son. And...
Yeah, Big Ed. I got to go. It was so cool when I was down in Florida last May. I got to go walk through the Independent Showman's Museum and interview Ed. What's that?
And I didn't make it.
You didn't make it. That's okay. I got to go hang out with Terry, and I got to check out all kinds of cool stuff. My parents now live in Florida, so I'm sure we'll be back down there. So,
woohoo! In the Tampa area?
No, they live in Ocala now.
Oh, that's further north. What is wrong with you people?
My sister and her husband live in Tampa because my sister's husband's in the Coast Guard. And so, but he's getting ready to retire. So they're thinking of moving to Orlando. He's like looking at jobs in Orlando. So
very good. One thing I got to ask you real quick is because I had your background up with your books, but obviously that doesn't go very well. Next time, should I go with the picturesque view that you had when you were flying this week?
Hey, whatever works. Actually, I should probably give you the one of the ones from Galbraith with the moon over the mountains and stuff, because that's a little creepy. Like it's both cool and Alaska and creepy. But my books works too, because that's our cabin. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's the
one that was in the intro.
What's that?
Is that the one that's in the intro with?
Oh yeah,
somebody doing the drone making me dizzy and getting sick.
Yeah,
because I get vertigo.
That is the same cabin that I just took this picture of our cabin at night. Yeah, I did that drone shot around the cabin with Terry. Terry is my mentor for helping me with my stuff. And actually, if you look at the front cover, like my Darkland book, that picture was taken from the front porch of the cabin. So,
and if you guys missed it, you got to check out Terry and I when we were over in Cocoa with John Dugan from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I've got to stitch that TikTok video, because that is the TikTok video you put of John Dugan just telling it like it is. That is hilarious.
That was years ago and I caught him off guard. He caught me off guard. And ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, that video, I had short hair. You can tell how long ago it was now. Very long ago. Anyway, we had so much fun tonight. We're going to do it again, April 28th. Anything else? Ray, we hope you feel better, buddy. And you're doing an excellent job. Looking forward to speaking with you again sometime. And I think I'm going to play your outro right now, which is the same as your intro, unless you have anything else to say, young lady.
I think we've got it covered.
Good night, guys.
Good night.